Hello everyone and welcome, and thank you for popping into the chat where you're from and what you're studying. That's great to see, and it's lovely to get to know you a bit as well. I'll just do a quick introduction then hand over to Kelly. So hello and welcome to our first Boost Your Skills event of 2022. Our Boost Your Skills events focus on supporting students with study skills, employability and well-being. And we've been privileged to work with a number of specialists who have put together excellent live sessions for you. I would like to thank, for this event, I would like to thank Sage Publishing and Kelly for helping us to provide this live event free of charge. And before I hand over to Kelly, I'd just like to go through a few housekeeping points. This is a webinar, which means that you'll not be able to turn your microphone or cameras on, but we would love to hear from you. And so please do join in the chat and also with the live polls that Kelly will be talking about. This will be quite an interactive session, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you. Kelly will lead the session for about 45 minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the event. This event is being live streamed to our YouTube channel, and it will be saved there. So don't worry if you missed something. I'll be sharing a link to that video after the event, and you'll also be able to view all past events there as well. So without further ado, I will hand over to Kelly to introduce herself. Over to you, Kelly.
Thank you so much, Jenny and JS Group for inviting me to this session to talk about research, and thank you to all of you for attending today. So as Jenny said, we'll be spending around about an hour together. 45 minutes will be the interactivity within the session, where you'll have a chance to join in, and also at the end for around about 15 minutes there'll be time for you to ask any questions that you might have around some of the topics we've discussed, or it might be about research in general, and I'll be able to take some of those questions. So I have got some slides which I will share now, and I'll just double check that you can all see them. So bear with me for 1 second while I just get those up. Okay, that should be showing the whole screen now.
Yeah, that's fine. We can see that.
Okay, so this session then today is going to be talking about research, and there's a few themes that I'm going to explore, which I will tell you about in a bit more detail. But before we get to that, I thought it'd be useful for you to just know a little bit about me and who is actually talking to you today. So some of the areas that I'm going to cover have actually been explored in the book that I've written, which is Plan Your Research Project. And some of those areas I will look at today, plus some bonus things as well. So I work as an independent academic consultant. And what I do is I support universities, colleges and schools with academic skill development. And I also coach aspiring academics, also undergraduate and postgraduate students, and also long-standing academics as well in some of these areas, plus pedagogy, etc. And my background is law, so predominantly I tutor in law as well, and also in A-levels and professional skills development too. And I'm also a lecturer for education for the PGCE program. So this is really where I've drawn my experiences from, and it enables me to share with you some of those practices today. So welcome to the session. And if you are a tweeter and you would like to tweet, then there's my Twitter handle, is TrueEducation, and feel free to do so. Okay, so what will we be talking about today then? So in today's session, we will cover these three areas. And we will be looking at procrastination. So that will really be talking about what procrastination might actually look like, and just some strategies to minimize that for research specific areas as well, because we can sometimes find that when we are starting a research project, especially when it's brand new, it can be quite daunting. And I still, from the chat, that we've got people from all different types of pathways, universities. You might be a student. I know some research supervisors are here with us today, course tutors, it's really great to see so many people from different pathways here too. So what that will enable me to do is really direct the conversation in a way that will be helpful for all of you under these headings. So the second bit is support network. So really, who is in your research support network? Who can you go to for some advice and support outside of the academic sphere, but also within that as well? And lastly, my favorite, the digital platforms to support you. We're so busy, aren't we, in terms of trying to manage our day jobs, in some cases studying, and also everything else that life brings, that if we can use some digital platforms to help us, then that can really be helpful in the longer term when it comes to research practices, and also getting that writing done, getting to that point where you're feeling like you're making progress. So they're the three themes. Feel free to ask questions that are outside of these three themes as well. And I will try to address some of those as we go along, and if I don't get to them then at the end as well. Okay, so what I'd like you to do first and foremost is to tell me about what worries you the most about research, and I'd like you to head over to menti.com. So that's menti.com, and put in this code 85093014, and just type in there. It will give you 9 boxes. You don't have to fill in all 9, but it's just if you want to write more than one, then you can. And I'll give you about 2 or 3 minutes to do that. And it will pop up on my screen and I will share it with you. So as you're doing that, I will check the live feed now as that's coming through. So that's menti.com, and the code is on the screen, which is 85093017. Thank you.
Hi, Kelly. Just while everyone's doing that, is there any way that you could make your slides a little bit clearer? They're coming across a little bit blurry. I didn't want to interrupt you earlier.
No worries. Yeah, I will try to do that now.
Thank you.
bit more clearer?
Yes, that's much clearer, thank you.
No worries. Okay, so I can see that loads of answers are coming through here. So carry on adding those if you want to, as I'm talking through some of these. I'm going to go through some. So I can see that procrastination, time management, and knowing where to start are sort of the big areas there. So yeah, it can be quite daunting when you start a research project and knowing sort of, okay, where's my starting point? Where do I even try to begin to manage this time? You might have 9 months to complete a research project, or you might be on a PhD or a master's program, which means you may have anything from 2 to maybe 8 years to complete. And that can be quite daunting to know what the starting point might look like and how to break that down. So we're going to tie that in with those procrastination minimization techniques, and we'll look at some of those areas today as well. And as we go through some of the platforms, I think that will also help too. I can see also there's some research specific elements that are coming through here as well. So things like data analysis, are my participants willing to be involved in the research? It might be you might be feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome. I can see that on there as well, because it might be really new, or as you go up in your role, you might be doing some work-based research, for example. It can feel a little bit like the unknown, and therefore these feelings might creep in. And I think it's natural to have some of those feelings come to the surface, and to look at what strategies to put into place is what we're going to do today. So thank you so much for sharing some of these ideas. I'm going to read out a few more of these, and then what we'll do is we'll move on to the next part, which looks at the minimization of procrastination. So we've got here as well, am I being too broad? So being able to narrow down a research question, and that can be quite a task in itself as well. So looking at how to do that, where to find that reading to inform that progress. Not influencing responses. Yeah, so what positioning do you play in research, and what impact does that have? Also, someone's got their lack of skill. So yeah, research development is actually a skill in itself. So whether that's planning the research, or whether that's carrying out the research, or the various elements involved, those things will start to grow as you work through that. Writing and life balance. So those are other two that have really stood out to me, because writing is one of those things that progresses as we do more of it. And life balance, yeah, knowing where to fit in this research alongside everything else that you might have going on, that might actually become quite overwhelming. So these are some of the things that I'm going to help you to look at and hopefully minimize as we go through. So thank you so much for putting those in. I know some people are still adding to that. Feel free to do so. I'm going to share my slides again now so we can continue with this. So in terms of procrastination, what I'd like you to do in the chat is define procrastination in one sentence. What do you think it is? And I'm going to get my slides back up. So yeah, I can see some there, putting things off, overthinking. It might be fear of starting the thing you need to do. Yeah, that's a big one. Too much time trying to decide what to do rather than getting started. Avoidance of the task, absolutely. Avoiding an element of the study or planning. Delaying tasks through blockages, or maybe some habits that you might have got into. Yeah, I can see these answers are coming through. And fear is a big one. It can be a big driver in terms of how you might actually be feeling. So again, that's something that we can explore in a bit more detail. So thank you for some of those answers that are coming through. So in terms of procrastination then, in research, it might manifest itself in various different ways. Now, if research is new to you, it might be that you're not really aware of the processes just yet, and you're working through those, and that's absolutely fine. You know, if you're at that stage where you're thinking, I'm not too sure actually what the next steps are, it's about looking to the resource around you and how to build some of that slowly but consistently. Or it might be that habitually some of that procrastination has started to build in, and that's fine too. It's about how we break some of those barriers to help you with that. So I'm going to talk to you about minimizing this. Now, one of the things that can really work well is a reward-based system. Now, you might want to reward yourself as you work through the research work that you're doing. So it might be, for example, you're working on your literature review and you've said to yourself, right, by the end of this week, I want to have read 3 papers. Okay, and they may vary. So one paper might be 10 pages, one might be slightly longer. There may be others which are, you know, you've been meaning to finish off. Give yourself a reward at the end of that on completion to give you motivation to keep going with that. Don't forget to celebrate those small wins. In research, it's really difficult sometimes when you're working from something that's been quite wide. You're going narrower and narrower towards your research question, and then you're having to navigate through that. Don't forget to celebrate each step as you take it, because that's a win in itself. So being able to keep yourself motivated, staying active in terms of your research, so little and often is always good in terms of the working week or even the week itself if you're doing some of your work on the weekends. Planning really helps too. Now, if you like to plan in terms of having a full breakdown where you can see the bigger picture, there's a section in the book where there's like the research map, and it gives you this breakdown of where to start and where you want to work towards the end. Or what you might prefer to do is to have a daily planner or a weekly planner, and you can buy those in any stationery shops where you can work through and tick off what you're working on. And again, you can make that personal to you. Now, that might be this week, there might be 2 things on there to do with your research. Next week, there might be 6 or 7 things on there. It'll vary from week to week and what you are actually working on. You want to have some optimum tools at your disposal, and we're going to talk about those a little bit later on, so hold that thought. But appreciate the journey as you're on it. So in terms of if you're having a period of time in your research where things are not going so great, don't worry so much about it not going great, and you might need to take a break for a few weeks, or it might be that you need to speak to your supervisor to say, you know, actually, I need to pause for a little while, or it might be that you're looking for some more inspiration and you need to look somewhere else to get that. Coffee with a friend, a colleague, a peer might help to direct that. So what I'm trying to say is, if procrastination starts to seep in, think about the ways in which you can overturn that. So if you procrastinate by, say, watching back-to-back TV, or if you procrastinate by, you know, having that blank page in front of you and not really being able to move beyond that, so you find other tasks to do. These are just examples I'm thinking of. Then think about what you can do to change that. So what in your life can you do to build towards it? Now, I'm not saying you have to change everything overnight, small and steady. So it might be that this week you say, right, I'm going to start off with 15 minutes of reading per day. And then you might build that up to half an hour per day. Or it might be, I'm going to watch a video on methodology, for example, and I'm going to take some notes and I'm going to make a mind map. You're actively contributing, so you're minimizing that procrastination, and slowly you're building up that momentum again. So there's some of the tips that you might want to take on board for procrastination and minimizing that further. I'm just going to check if anybody has got any questions at this stage. So I can see that, you know, planning can be something that's small and you can work towards it, and achievable tasks. And I can see that someone in the chat has put, as opposed to a massive PhD plan that's there for university milestones, that can be broken down and absolutely use it for the holistic picture. It's always brilliant to have something to have that bigger picture overview, and I think it's important to have that as well. But yeah, absolutely, you're right. Having the smaller steps to get there is the main thing. So it's like those breadcrumbs, that you've got. What can I add that will be more meaningful in my week as well? And also you can tick off what you're doing. And if you're the kind of person that's satisfied by ticking off their goals for the week or things that they've achieved, do that. There was someone I was talking to last week, and we were saying, what about writing down everything I've achieved this week as well? So as opposed to just having a long list all the time, saying, what have I actually achieved this week? And you'll probably be surprised. It's going to be quite a lot of things, especially when you're actively researching, working, and doing everything else that you'll be doing in your busy life. So think about that and how you can make that a positive experience for yourself. And even if you are having some experiences which might not be going so well, I think not to feel like you can't have those too. It peaks and troughs with research. It's always going to be, you'll have some wins and you'll feel really great, but there may be some weeks where you think, oh, that's not going so well, and that's okay. Okay, so I think I've spoken quite a lot here about procrastination. So I'm going to move on now to talk about who can support you. Now, this is a support system wheel, which I think is useful for various different reasons. Now, what I would say is, either at some point this week or whenever you get some time, maybe this month or next month, fill out this support system. And I'm going to talk to you about those mini circles that I've got in the circle. So it might be that you may need some emotional support at some stage during the research journey. And it might be that you want to talk to somebody about how you might be feeling. And that might be anyone from a friend, a family member, it might be a peer. So think about, how are my emotional needs being met? Then you might have research specific needs that need to be met. And those could vary from technical questions, which might be related to your subject specific area, or it might be research specific questions in terms of, I'm thinking about these methods, what do you think? So it might be that you talk to your research supervisor about that, or it might be that you want to talk to somebody who is in your class. If you're on a master's degree, you might be in a small group where you can talk to people. If you're on an undergraduate course and you're doing your dissertation for the first time, there'll be others in your group who are in the same boat. So maybe you can share ideas with each other. Personal support system. It might be that you need to carve out time at home to allow you to do some of this research. I used to know somebody who used to have a golden hour in the morning. So they used to wake up at 5 a.m. and that's when it was really quiet in their house. So they would work from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. in complete peace to work on their research. And then they'd start their day at 6 o'clock because they knew that they'd have to have other responsibilities throughout the day. So that might be from, dropping kids to school, getting ready for work, going to work, etc. So what time do you need to carve out that can allow your research to run more smoothly and for you to be able to have that protected time? Or are you a night worker? Do you prefer to do things when everyone else has gone to sleep and you can concentrate more then? Work out what works best for you. And I think that's one of the things that you can do, like a self-audit really of what works for you in your personal life, in your work life, and also the research side of things, and how you can tie those three together. Academic support system, similar to research specific, but you can go wider. So it might be that your course tutor may be able to answer some of the questions. It might be that you need some help with stats, or you might be analyzing data. Think about your library support team. So You should have somebody at your library who will be able to direct you. There are also courses online. So if you're part of, let's say, LinkedIn Learning, sometimes they have stuff on data. There are also, Sage also have some of these courses available as well that you can have a look at if your institution subscribes. Or you may also have somebody in your group, or there may be anyone who is part of your course team who can talk about some of these areas as well. So it's worth completing this wheel so you've got that support system built up as well. So support is important for these three areas, and I like to think of them as interlinked, because I think without you having the well-being part sorted, you can't actually enjoy it, and it can't contribute to your success if you're running constantly on you're going to burn out if those things are not running. So I think thinking about your own well-being and thinking, do I need a break? Or thinking, how much time am I carving out for my research? How much time am I carving out for my own well-being as well? I think that's the main thing. So thinking, okay, I've got X amount of work I need to do. What can I do to have some time away from this? So more often than not, I know we have that guilty feeling as researchers when we're not working on something, and you might think, oh God, I've not worked on that for, the last 3 or 4 hours. Allow yourself that time off. It's really important. And success, what does that look like? So you might want to revisit that and think, well, is success just the bit at the end when I get my degree? Or is success the building of the skills, the building of the relationships, the building of the knowledge that I'm getting, and thinking about it in that way? So you might find that there are certain peaks in the journey where you're thinking, oh, great, that's going really well, and I'm really learning something here. Probably when you finish, you will look back and think, oh yeah, I've come a long way since that point where I wasn't really too keen or too sure about that particular concept, but I know it really well now. And I think it's about noting that and reflecting on that progress. Reflective practice is a big part of this. And I know that some of you who might be doing postgraduate courses will definitely be aware. If you're on an undergraduate course, what I would say is, as part of your dissertation, start making some notes in a journal to see what progress you are actually making. What research are you doing? How much of an impact is it having, etc. So you will be able to look at that in a bit more detail once you've been able to step back from it as well. So what can your supervisor help you with? Now, this is like the $1 million question that I get asked all of the time. So I don't have a clear-cut answer to this because it will depend on institution to institution. However, I do have some advice that I can give you. Now, in terms of what your supervisor can do, usually you'll have a handbook as part of your module or as part of your course, which will outline what your supervisor is allowed to help you with and isn't allowed to help you with. And they're the clear boundaries. So boundaries are important. But also, the other thing is knowing, okay, what do I personally need support with from a research standpoint, and addressing that with your supervisor in a very honest way. So saying, I'm really great at some of these areas, but these areas I really struggle with. And they may be able to say, okay, the support can come from X or Y. Further, in your first meeting with your supervisor, you might want to talk to them about what the relationship will look like, what the sessions will look like, how will you document some of these conversations that you'll be having. Will you be taking notes? Will you be recording the call, for example? Have you got their permission? All of those kinds of things are really important. So think about, what can my supervisor help me with? A, but also B, what do I need support with? So there'll be some things they'll be able to happily help you with, and there'll be other things which you may need to look beyond your supervisor to find the answers to. And not to say they won't direct you, because they'll be able to provide you with some of those signposts, but I think knowing where those boundaries are really important there as well. And getting into that habit of asking questions and thinking, okay, this is something that I really need help with. My supervisor may be able to guide me in terms of that. There's a section on in the book, sorry, that talks about the supervisor relationship in a little bit more detail and the kinds of things that you might want to talk about in that first meeting as well. And I would say when you set up that first meeting, just send off a friendly email if you've not met your supervisor yet to introduce yourself. And there may be a couple of questions that you can cover off in there if they're quite short and quick. Just be mindful of the time of the supervisor as well, because they'll have allocated time to support you. So whereas you should definitely make the most of the time that you have with them, because it's a really great relationship to nurture and build, also think about the boundary as well. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay. What I'd like you to do now is talk to me a little bit about what digital platforms do you enjoy using at the moment. Now, I'm going to put a link to the Padlet into the chat so that you can add to this. Now, if you haven't used Padlet before, once I've put this link in the chat, you'll be able to go into it and there'll be a little pink circle with a white plus sign, as you can see there on that post-it note, and you can add your answers onto there. And you can see I've put a test one in there. If anybody is struggling, just let me know and I can support you further. So follow the link in the chat to the Padlet and add your suggestions, and I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that, and we will look at some of your answers. Thank you. I'll be quiet now for a couple of minutes.
Kelly, we have a question in the chat just asking if you mean a platform for research or a platform for capturing notes.
Yeah, so either. So it can be for research or it might be very specific to capturing notes. And so things like maybe, so I've put Sway on there because that allows for some interactivity where I might write about some of the research, or also there may be specific ones like RefWorks, for example, where you might record some of your references. So any, and I can see quite a few are coming through here. Thank you for that question. I'll go through some of these and I'll just give it one more minute, keep adding as I'm talking through. And what we'll do is we'll share this across as well. So you've got access to this particular Padlet too, with some of these examples on there. Okay, I'm going to go through some of these answers. So hopefully you can see these on the screen coming through. So I can see that some of you have put about using Google Classroom and OneNote. I think Google Classroom is really great for, storing things. You're able to also have a very interactive space. So if you're sharing that classroom space with, say, if that's with research students, then again, it can be personalized as well, and you can put documents on there, etc. So yeah, really great. Mendeley, really good for references and managing your references, and it's a reference management system basically, which is really helpful. Zotero is really good as well, and that's another reference manager, and someone has also put on there that you can search PDFs, which is really helpful. Google Scholar, yeah, really great platform, especially if you're trying to look for something very quickly as part of your literature review. That's always helpful. Connected papers, yes, I've heard lots about that as well. ThingLink, so ThingLink is quite interactive, so you're able to make anything from maps to like visuals, which are really great for maybe mapping your ideas. So if you're very early on in your research journey and you're sort of trying to map out, okay, this is what I'm thinking, and then you move on in a few months' time and you widen that knowledge, you can add to it, which is really great. Somebody else has put Trello. So Trello is brilliant. I absolutely love it to organize reading too, as this person's put as well. And you can keep track of your notes and your reading, absolutely. Furthermore, what else? MS Teams. Yes, as we all know, MS Teams has really grown over the last nearly 2 years. And there's so many more things you can do on there now. As a research lecturer, when I first started using this was maybe about 4 years ago now, I used it to teach my research students, and logging the information on there and organizing the information was really helpful as well. I know that some of you are a little bit worried about platforms and maybe a little bit fearful or overwhelmed with how many there are. That's absolutely fine. What I would say is maybe pick 1 or 2 a month and just explore them and see what works. I know it can seem like, oh, I'm not really sure which one to use. Think about what you need to use them for first. So think, okay, do I need something for managing my references? Then you might go to 2 or 3 of the reference management systems and have a look. Or it might be, do I need to organize my reading? And then you might look at some of those as well. Padlet's really good for organizing some of the reading as well. Some of you have put Instagram and LinkedIn. Yeah, absolutely. Really great for, finding specific pieces of reading, current reading, even following research accounts on there. Really good, especially if you are a regular Instagram user and you might be using it to procrastinate. But if you can use it for a research too, then that's also brilliant. And so on. So I know that we're getting up to 1:45, so I just wanted to show you a digital platform which I think you'll find really useful. But thank you for sharing these. Do keep adding to those and growing this too. And yes, this will be shared. So I'm just going to get my slides back up, and we can continue to look at this in a bit more detail. But it's useful, I feel, to see what other people have been using. So talk to people on your course as well, or even people that might not be doing the same subject or topic as you, because you might find that they have some good ideas too. Okay, so we've talked about the digital platforms there. So give some of them a go. These are a few others. One that I really wanted to talk to you about is Notion. That's really great for organizing your whole life. So say, for example, if you like to have a space whereby you can organize everything in one place, so it might be from recipes to appointments for you and the kids and maybe family members, etc., but also your research space, you can look at Notion, and it's really good because you can download it as an app, and you can also make live changes on the go, and it's really intuitive. and it's got loads of videos on how to use it as well. So do check that out. Padlet, you've had a go at today if you've not used it before. And lastly, otter.ai, absolutely fantastic tool for anybody who's at the stage where they are recording. So if you're interviewing or doing focus groups and you are recording your participants, make sure you get permission first. But otter.ai will transcribe live, but it only lets you do, I think it's 40 minutes for free. So you might want to look at the duration, or you might want to do it in 2 sections to allow you to get that. There's also the premium version, etc., that you might want to look at as well. Okay, so there's just some app ideas. Hopefully that's been helpful. But the one big thing that I really want to talk to you about today is Research Rabbit. So Research Rabbit is probably going to revolutionize how you actually conduct research paper searches. So if you haven't heard about it before, Research Rabbit is basically a great web-based application that you can use. And if you sign up with my code Trivedy, you can also gain access to that via your educational email address. So on sign up, if you put Trivedy in, you can have access to that too. We'll do a walkthrough now, so I can show you like the top 3-4 things, and the impact of it is brilliant, and it's time saving, and you can set it to automate papers. So bear with me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen so that you can actually see it. And I can do a quick demo of it for you as well. Okay, so as I'm just loading this up, you'll be able to see that I've gone on to researchrabbitapp.com. Now, when I go into it, this is what comes up for me because I've already got a login. And this is the home screen. Now, what you can do is you can add a new collection. I'll show you one of my collections in a second, but just bear with me while I talk you through it. So new collection here, I'm going to maybe search adoption in the UK. Okay, that's my topic area. So that's my research. Let's just pretend for a second. So I go into that and I think, right, I want to add some papers. Now, I haven't got any papers on this, so I need to search. So I'm going to go over to the search bar, really easy, and I'm going to search adoption, and I'm going to pop England, okay? And I'm just going to click search there, and as you can see, there's some papers coming up. Now, I'm just going to add some of these. So yeah, relevant, and you can see what I'm doing. I'm adding these to my collection. Right, so then what I do next is I go back to my collection, and you can see these papers that I've added. Now, how quick has it been to find those papers? Now, if I click on this, I can add a comment. So say if I want to read that tomorrow, I might say, right, read on Thursday, the 20th of Jan. Great, my comment comes up there. But what about if I want to see earlier work in relation to this? So if I just click down here, earlier work, it starts to put together the relationships between some of that work that came before and what papers have actually been cited. And it starts to build up a timeline. And you can see that. Now let me show you actual research that I've been doing. Right, now if you want to see a visualization, can you see, look how amazing this is. It will tell you what papers are quoted or cited in other papers. If you go on a timeline view, it gives me a timeline from all the way from the 70s to present day, which is excellent. You can also, some of you talked about Zotero, you can connect it there as well. Now, I haven't connected it because it's not a system that I use, but if you use it, a lot of you have talked about it, then you can connect it, which is brilliant. The other thing Research Rabbit will also do is send you personalized emails if you just sign up every Sunday if new papers are released. on your topic area. So once you've started doing it, it starts working for itself. The more papers you add that are relevant, the more it starts to build this picture. So can you see, when you're using your university database to find some other papers, it's really great when you're able to locate them, but sometimes it takes you through various databases. This has access to a lot of the well-known databases worldwide to get you access. And some of them, let me just see if it can do it here. You can actually download the actual PDF as well. Let me see if I can find you an example. So if we click on this, can you see up here? It says PDF. If I click on that, it will just download the PDF for me as well. So that's brilliant. I can just save it straight away. So that's just something that I wanted to share with you as a resource to help you really if you're a researcher, which you all are if you are doing some research and you are part of a educational institution, then you can use Research Rabbit and you can use my code to sign up there. So that's Research Rabbit. Do use it, give it a go, and see how it works for you. The other things that you might want to try doing in terms of your research journey is journal. So keep a diary system, reflect on your research goals as you're going through, keep updated search records. So you might want to you can use Research Rabbit for that as your logging system if you wish, but also maybe having an Excel spreadsheet where you might have, tabs to say what you've read and then the themes from your reading. Some of it's trial and error. Some apps will be brilliant for you and you'll love them. Some apps you won't like so much, but test, keep going, seeing what works for you, and don't be afraid to try something new. And research is, it's a journey that you're going to be on for a while, whether that's from a few months to a few years. So try to get it so that you have things that work for you and that are intuitive to your own ways of working and practice. As I mentioned before, this book consolidates some of this information, but also expands on some of the ideas we've talked about today, and it is available to purchase via the JS Group website as well. And I will stop there and I'll stop talking in case anybody else has any questions. I have a few minutes to take these, so please do feel free to put those in the chat. If you want to follow me on my social accounts, I'll leave this up here so that you've got it. And I will now head over to the chat so I can see some of the questions that are coming through. But yes, thank you everyone for coming along. Okay, so I can see, I'm just scrolling up so I've got some access to these questions. Okay, what about sources that are not open access? What databases are you using? Can you give more detail? So in terms of those that are not open access, you probably won't be able to download them. However, you can go to your university database once you've got the name of them, because they'll all be in sort of one space for you. So you could save them there and then search them if they're not downloadable as a PDF. I know for some of you, it might seem like it's another step added in, but if you're doing a very niche research project, it might be really difficult to find without using something like Research Rabbit to do some of that background AI work for you in the background, because it uses artificial intelligence to give you some of those suggestions in a bit more detail. Do I need a reference manager with Research Rabbit? It depends. So it depends on how you manage your references. You can connect Zotero because it doesn't have one built in itself. So you could use that. You could use RefWorks. I use RefWorks alongside it, and that works very well for me. So I would still recommend having a reference management system as well, but it depends on how you work. I've seen lots of thank yous. Thank you very much for coming along to this. What else have we got? In relation to dissertation topics, should COVID impact be avoided as they're likely to be overdone / people not wanting to be reminded of a pandemic? That's a really great question. I would say in some instances, we can get sucked into change coming through because of the pandemic, and we've got to bear in mind that at some stage, this pandemic will go away. And even though it might not feel like that now, I think if there are some very key prominent learning points that would be beneficial to talk about in your research/dissertation topic, then do, because it might be very relevant. If it's something where you think this is just a phase and we're probably going to move out of this, then maybe don't, but you might want to give it a bit of a nod, so you've acknowledged some of that practice and said, I've considered this. However, due to my thoughts on X, Y, and Z and the other research around this, I've chosen not to explore this. So justify why if you feel like maybe you want to go down that road. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I'm really glad that some of you found this really helpful. Do I have a favorite classical research textbook? Yes, I do. I am hesitating because there's two. So there is one by Cohen that I really love, and that's the Research Methods one, and it's a black cover. It's got pink in it as well. I'll send it over to Jenny when we send out the other resources. I can't remember the full title. And there's another one which is called Research Methods and Methodologies, and that's by Co et al. As well, and that's a really great book. I really do love some of the work done by Gray as well. So I would say those would probably be my top three. One of the ones that I have found useful in most recent years, I would say, is the Ranjit Kumar book on research too. That's a really great book. Oh yeah, feel free to connect on LinkedIn, no problem. If you sign up for the Research Rabbit, is Trivedy the sign-up code? Yes, it's the sign-up code, and then the password is one that you just set for yourself. So remember to use your institutional email address. So don't use Yahoo or Google, etc. Yeah, it's interesting. Still not enough known about COVID, very hard to find high level data. Yeah, absolutely. It might be that if you are doing research that's around COVID, that things might change very rapidly. You know, we see ourselves in the news, how much things have evolved and changed since we first heard about the pandemic. So that's a very relevant point that someone's put forward there. What resource did you say we can access on JS Group website? I believe that you can purchase my book from their website. They also have other free talks available that are coming up, and you can see those advertised as well. And I'm sure Jenny will point you towards those as we go through sending you some of those resources too. Thank you, Jenny. Would you say your suggestions, hints, also relevant to MSc project students? Yeah, absolutely, all research students. So whether you're doing a business course, whether you're doing sciences, all of these points are really relevant. And if you're a lecturer or a supervisor, course tutor, what I would say is take the bits that are really relevant for you and embed some of those in. And, you know, there might be something that you can build on there. Can one access the recorded audio to this session? I think you'll be able to access the video because it'll be on YouTube, and I am sure that if you didn't want the video on and you just wanted to listen, you could have it on in the background and do that as well. What else have we got? Research Rabbit is a free tool, free to researchers. So yeah, it doesn't need a subscription, and they have pledged that they are not going to make it something that you have to pay for if you are a researcher. So do use it. It's brilliant. 4 books in the chat. I'll send those over to Jenny, and then when you get the messages through, you'll have those as well. I'm just worried if I put them in the chat, I'm probably going to lose where I'm up to in the chat just with the messages at the moment. Brilliant with Research Rabbit. Do you have any advice for mature students who have never conducted research before? Yes. Okay. So mature students are probably going to feel quite overwhelmed in terms of not only the research side of things, but how far things have evolved in education in terms of how we read, how we write, etc. So I would say a really great induction on some of those areas would be useful. And if you're a student yourself, what I would say is following some accounts that will really help you with that. So whether you do that on Instagram or Twitter's a great place for research. You know, getting that advice, I think that's really important, and having those library connections. They would be my top 3. Make use of that library support. But you know, when I was doing my master's degree, I made use of that. It was great to just have somebody else to give me some of that guidance that I may have been looking for at that stage that I wouldn't have probably got from anyone else, because we were just so close to my research. So they would be my tips. Oh yes, Jenny's just said if you would like the audio recording specifically, Jenny can look into this, and if you just email Jenny on jenny.morton@johnsmith.co.uk. Okay, so I think so far that's everybody's questions. If you've got any more, please do put them in the chat. The books, oh yeah, let me put the books in now I'm here. So I would say the book by Cohen is really good. And then there is a book by Ko et al. And there's also one by Ranjit Kumar as well. Like I say, I'll send the links on, but if you just want the actual authors, that's always useful to have there. There you go. So yeah, those are the books that I would personally recommend, and I have read these probably cover to cover as well. So giving those recommendations based on someone who has used those as a companion for when I've been teaching my students, but also as a student myself as well. So you can see both sides there too. I hope you found that useful. Like I say, these are my social accounts. I do offer support to institutions on reflective practice, research and education, and critical thinking. And those are sort of my areas of expertise. So if anyone is interested and wants to know more about that, drop me an email. More than happy to connect with students and educators alike. So yes, thank you so much for coming along to this. It's been really great to be able to share some of the points from the book, but also some of that bonus knowledge and applications as well. So thank you so much. Oh, any recommendations for a free data analysis software? Okay, that's a tricky one. What I would say is make use of the free trials available, because there's quite a few. So what you might want to do is explore those and then see if your institution has a subscription to them. Some departments do. If your department doesn't, you may be able to see if there's a colleague who can show you in a different department. I know this is a bit of a long way around it, but I think that might be something which is useful to do. I don't know any off the top of my head that would be freely available, but that's one of the things I would recommend you look at. As a student, actually, some software platforms offer you a free trial for a longer period, so you might want to try that if you're a student. If you are a lecturer, sometimes your institution can do a sign up, and it might be worth, if it's something that more than a few of you are interested in, i.e. if it's sort of colleagues across different departments, you may be able to get a cheaper rate. So maybe look at that and get in touch with them directly. I hope that's been useful. I know I've not got a direct answer there, but I hope that helps. Can you tell me about the group for information? Well, I'm not really too sure what you mean by that question. You might need to expand on that, because I'm not really sure which group.
Shadow is still here in the meeting. So if you are listening still, Shadow, we were just wondering if you could expand on your question.
Thank you.
While we're waiting, I just say thank you everyone for attending. We do have a short survey when you finish the event. If you do have time to fill that out, that really does help us improve events for next time. As Kelly said, we will be sending on an email with all of the information. So we'll have the slides in it. We'll have all this of relevant links. So it'll be really packed full of information. So don't worry, if there's anything you do need, it should be in there. If you do have any questions after the event that you suddenly thought of that haven't been answered about sort of where you can access any of this information, then you can always email me. So you've all given me your email addresses and I will be getting in touch with you all. Just reply to that and I will get back to you. So thank you very much. And I think I haven't had a reply about that. So I think we'll probably leave it at that. But like I said, if anyone's got any extra questions, just get in touch with me and I will get back to you. Thank you very much. So I will end the event now and that will mean that it disappears for everyone. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to have you, Kelly, and all of you attendees as well. It's been a really great event. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. And yeah, it's been great.